if I'm going to die, we're going to continue traveling, and I'm going to die doing what I love.
How has your income changed since you were working corporate versus now?
I made more in 1 month than I made in an entire year slaving for someone else. I had never lived on my own. So empowering to allow yourself to just be on your own.
What advice do you have for people who are trying to figure out what to do with their lives?
You don't need to know exactly what your purpose is. Just start with what makes you excited, what you're passionate about, because if you can show up every day and doing that, then life's going to be amazing.
Hello, Wayfinders, and welcome back to 101 Ways Out. I'm your host, Vanessa Jupi. Today, I'm introducing you to Alisa Messeroff. That name might sound familiar to you because we interviewed her husband for our very first episode. Alisa has a unique and intriguing journey going from a really interesting corporate job to traveling around the world and using her intuition and connection to the universe to do a lot of really cool things. Now, this episode is as woo as it gets. So open your mind and get ready to hear a really interesting journey about how Alisa learned to connect with her spiritual side, do quantum healing, and all kinds of other interesting things that I am very much learning about, because this is not the world that I've lived in, but I find it fascinating and I find her even more intriguing. So I hope you listen. I hope you like it. I hope you love it. You're going to see some super cool photos and videos in this as well, because Alisa lives a non-traditional life. She spends her time between Breckenridge, Colorado, and Tamarindo, Costa Rica. She's also traveled around the world for her photography career. Take a look. Can't wait to hear what you think. Leave your comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Until then, go rewrite the rules. All right, cool. So let's get started with just introduce yourself and tell us where you are in your life and your journey at this moment in time.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. My name is Alisa Messeroff, and currently I'm sitting in my condo in Colorado, but I split my time between Breckenridge, Colorado, and Tamarindo, Costa Rica. So I have built a life where I basically live it on my own terms. But thank you for having me. I'm super stoked.
Thank you for being here.
I remember setting the alarm when I was working in corporate at 5 a.m. to go to the gym first, to go. Like, everything was so hustle, was so rushed. And I was very intentional about building my life after I left corporate. And I'm excited to tell you my story, but that I didn't have to feel rushed, that my body, like my nervous system, and it's actually especially important for me because I'm battling 14 years now. I break out in hives from head to toe and welts, and my organs can swell. It's pretty wild. And so to be able to build a life where I can take care of my physical body, my mental body, it's really important. And it's important for each and every one of us. For me, it physically comes out in hives. For other people, they get sick in other ways or mentally. And so, I always wake up and sit in gratitude to be here today and just to be healthy-ish. I actually do have a couple hives today. You can't see them on my face, which is I'm grateful for. It's been a long, long journey. I've had them for 14 years now. And I have alpha-gal. I know I have alpha-gal. So I was bit by the Lone Star tick. 4 years I was diagnosed. I got some sad news. I'm a little bit bummed because I had my blood work done again last week. And my numbers are higher than they were my previous test 4 years ago. I actually self-diagnosed with that. And then I went and had blood tests and it came back positive. So I definitely have alpha-gal, which you react to animal byproducts. There's a sugar that you're basically reacting to, but it's going deeper than that. So I hired an herbalist. Like, my life is very different. So I had an herbalist. We're really trying to dig into it, but I've noticed, and this might be TMI, but around my time of the month, my hives start to flare. By also what I've never tracked before, which is really cool, is the moon cycle. So when there's a full moon, I also am starting to break out in hives. So how it's all correlating, nothing's coincidental. I believe that everything we're experiencing in this life is because we chose the life that we're in right now to learn the lessons we need to learn to bring them forward. And that's also part of my journey as well, because I connect with spirit. So yeah.
That's amazing. And I think there's so much to being a woman and the cycles that we have, and the fact that we really should talk about that stuff more, but we have learned not to. And also what you said about the moon cycle.
It just doesn't make
Good.
sense. Just like we're not supposed to talk about money. Like, ask me about money
Mhm.
all day. The more that you feel in control of your life and you know where you're headed and where you're going, it's just so important. And so being confident in who you are is what brings that abundance. It's what brings clarity. It's what brings health. And so I'm learning this all in my journey. This is part of my journey. So I could sit there and I could be like really upset because when this first started for a really long time, actually, I was covered head to toe. And the doctors, like, I became suicidal. I was on prednisone, 80 milligrams a day. It was like such a journey. So just to like be sitting here and just talk about it and that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay that you have health issues. It's okay to
Yeah.
talk about money. It's okay. Like, it's okay to talk about it all, like, and be who you are.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that. We have a friend that has alpha gal
You
also.
do?
Yes, yes. So you're now the second person I know. And
Wow. Amazing. Oh, it's
yeah,
not amazing. It's not
it's
amazing,
not a
but that you know what it is. Most people have no
yeah.
idea what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've learned quite a bit because of his experience with it, but it's some scary shit. Like, you can
Yeah.
accidentally eat the wrong thing and all of a sudden you could possibly die. I mean,
Yeah.
just because a tick bit you, I mean, that's some crazy stuff.
It's crazy.
So let's go to the beginning. So tell me a little bit about what your upbringing was like.
Let's just backtrack to like when I think I was 3 or 4. That's when I started to be able to connect to spirit. So what makes me a little bit different is that I can channel, I can connect with spirit. And so with my upbringing, my mom was very, very overprotective in every single form possible. Like, she was connected to me. She believed the world was out to get me. And it wasn't coming from, it was just fear. Each of us have trauma. And she lost her dad at a young age. And she also lost her fiance. And so then she met my dad afterwards. So all of these traumatic events had happened to her. And so she lived a very structured life and a very overprotective life, especially of me. I have an older sister, 3 years older. It really, like, she was protective of my sister, but not to the degree she was protective of me. And so I would be like walking like from the bus stop home, looking over my shoulder because afraid someone was going to attack me. So like it wasn't just like it was overprotective in like pretty crazy ways. And so I could connect with spirit. And so the first time spirit came to me, I remember running to my mom. And I do not blame my parents at all. I understand we're each on our own journey. And I was like, Mom, this experience happened. Basically, I was laying in bed and in this form, I actually saw spirit. And I was laying in bed and I thought it was magical. I wasn't scared at all. And there was no communication. It was just like this presence that like filled my soul. And I was so excited and I went to share it with my mom and she's like, "You're making things up. It's your imagination." Now, when I look back and I reflect, she was just in protection mode, right? And like she couldn't like comprehend that. And now fast forward, I'm 41 years, or I guess it was, if I was 4, it was a little yes. But fast forward to present day, she has late stage Parkinson's. So I truly believe like disease is dis-ease. There's something going on in the body. And so I'm still really navigating that too. And we'll kind of like talk about that as well. But I recently came back from a 2-week trip in Bali, which was pretty groundbreaking for me, life shifting and life altering with my spirit connection. And I'd been told by shamans and priestesses, like they all knew I could connect with spirit without me saying one word. And they said, "You're not living in your true purpose. And this is why you're breaking out in hives." And so I've been stepping into it more and more. But that, I will say, fear is just false evidence appearing real. But because my mom led a life built in fear her entire life, I don't want to say it rubbed off on me in some ways, but in some ways it did. In some ways, I went the complete opposite way. So growing up, my dad took the more fun role. Now they both are just their existences of how they're living life now is how you never would want to live life. Like, it's really, really, for me, it's heartbreaking. It's really sad. My sister and I talk about it all the time. And so to live your best life is so important. And I'm constantly every single day being reminded of that because they're in existence right now. They're not living, they worked so hard their whole life, worked corporate their whole life. And now My mom can't even move. She has a caretaker. She can't move. She can barely process thoughts. So you'll talk to her and she'll respond like maybe 5 minutes later, maybe if you're going to get an answer. It's just sad. She was a mathematician. She was so smart. Yes, she was overprotective, but she was also this woman who planned all our trips and she took control. Like she really took
Yeah.
control. And my dad now is just kind of angry at the whole situation, supportive, but angry. And so he's just existing with her. It's sad. So coming full circle to watch where I started and how she was to where she is now, I never ever want to become. Like a lot of people like aspire to become who their parents were. My parents have inspired me to never want to become and live their life. So, I mean, she's
Yeah.
also inspired me because she can't really function and she can't lift her like, she can't stand, right? She can't walk. Starting I guess it's been a 2-year journey now. I've been lifting weights at the gym. Like, I can do 6 pull-ups now, which I'm very impressed with myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just a little bit different, and
Mm.
so being able to communicate with her and, like, share my gratitude with her, but then also her just sitting there and not being able to communicate back. So, yeah, growing up, like, that was pretty much my existence. I mean, I had a curfew. I had to be home by curfew, could not be a second late. And then even when I went to college and I would come home for breaks, it got pretty bad. Before her Parkinson's got so bad where she couldn't physically walk with me, she this is bad, but I refer to her kind of like a leech. I would go to the bathroom and she would come in the bathroom with me and I would say, "Mom, I have to go to the bathroom." She was clinging on, and she was like holding on tight. She didn't want her to let her baby go. And that literally was her story with me my entire life and her entire life. And now she physically can't. She can't. So like
Yeah.
the only way I can be with her is if like I go sit in the room with her. But I know if that woman could walk, she would still be that way. And so I think I became the woman I am today, which I'm grateful for because that protection and that like scarcity and that fear was so intense that I knew from a young age, I will not become like this. Like, I will be
Yeah.
free. So in 5th grade, I went to France on a French exchange program for 3 weeks. So she did encourage us to travel. She did encourage my sister and I to, like, be free in that way, so that also was very helpful. But it is interesting that a lot of who we become comes from our parents and generations before. So I didn't really talk about what I do. I'm very multi-passionate, but I basically like, if I'm summing it all up, I empower women to step into their life of freedom. And so I do that through many different modalities. We're doing body work. So I'm a breathwork facilitator. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I'm a professional photographer. So I do empowerment photography and I'm a mindset and manifestation coach. So I've kind of put it all into one and I help women step out of that fear so they can live their best life. And if it wasn't for her, I'd probably be on a completely different path. It wasn't for like the generational trauma because her mom, like my grandma, was I saw it with my own eyes, was very protective of her, right? So she was just projecting it onto me. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it all began.
Yeah. I get this impression that there's something unique that's happened in this generation that we're in, and maybe even slightly like maybe one generation beyond ours, where people are realizing that these patterns should be broken and they're taking steps to do the inner work to break them. Has that always been going on, or is that more of a recent thing?
For me, yes. So I've been kind of the not follow the I follow the laws. I'm a law follower, but I'm not a society follower by any means. So I'm not sure I know that you had interviewed my husband, Mike, and I don't know if he talked about it, but we're polyamorous.
Oh, no, he
So,
didn't.
we're in basically an open marriage, right? So our relationship is open. We quit our corporate jobs, which was I was the cat. I mean, he'll say it. I was the catalyst for that. So that happened in 2011. We quit our corporate jobs. Most of this healing work, most of all these things have happened since COVID. But when we were doing it, we were the outliers. Especially in the United States, there were people internationally doing it, which obviously we didn't know at the time until we started traveling. But, when we first told my parents that we were going to quit our corporate jobs to travel the world, my dad said, "I'm disappointed in you." And I was like, well, I'm doing it anyway. Like, I can't wait. But he did come. We moved to St. John in the Caribbean, our first destination. And I was a hiking tour guide and worked on a 50-foot catamaran, which was amazing. And he looked at me and he said, Alisa, he came and visited. And he said, Alisa, I get it. I understand. And so that was really nice. That was because you never want to like disappoint your parents. But for me, doing the inner work, I think being able to connect to spirit at such a young age and not having an outlet for it because I couldn't go to my parents. I thought I was a super freak. So I didn't talk about it at all. I mean, even to my best friends, I was like, keep this quiet. And then when I went to college, it started getting really intense for me. So because when I was in college, I could do what I wanted to do. I started going to some different doctors to see if I had something wrong with my brain, which I didn't. And I was like, why is this happening? And so like the whole spirit story is just like I could talk about spirit and everything that has happened for like a really long time.
Well, walk me through it. Let me ask you two more questions about
Yes.
your childhood, and then let's walk through the spirit journey because I am
Okay.
really interested. Tell me about your parents, what they did for a living, and what kind of expectations they had for you, if they had expectations for you growing up, if they had anything that you kind of felt like there was something they wanted you to do, and anything else that kind of shaped you as a child.
My dad was a professor and he was a landscape architect. And my mom worked for 9X, which then turned to Verizon. And she did that her entire, like nowadays people change their careers so often, especially in corporate. So you can like go up the ladder. But back then, that's not how it was, right? So she worked at 9X her entire slash Verizon when it switched, her entire life. She also hated her boss. So she would come home every single day crying
Oh,
I'm like reliving it. I'm gonna cry because it was like it's true. Like I feel it now. Like I feel her pain because I worked a corporate job where I hated not my boss. I shouldn't say hated, but strongly disliked. I got bullied at my first corporate job by one of my coworkers and I didn't know how to handle it. And I'd come home crying every single day. And I was like, oh my God, is this my life? Right? Like, this is what my mom had to deal with and she just had to deal with it. And I knew like I only lasted, you're always supposed to, I don't know, quote unquote, you're supposed to stay in corporate at least a year, like at each job, or so they say, or that's what it was when I was back in corporate. And I was like, I can't do this. So I lasted 9 months in that because I was like, I'm breaking this pattern. I will not become my mom, right? I will not become that story. And so I will say that growing up, I was extremely hard on myself. My parents didn't need to be hard on me because I was so hard on myself. So, like with grades, if I didn't do well, I would go punish myself and go sit in my room and just cry. Like, I had very high expectations of myself. And so, I will say, in that regard, my parents were very lenient to me because they were like, well, shit, she's just gonna go, she's gonna go torture herself. And they would have to come and be like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. But in terms of, safety wise, I also wasn't rebellious where I was like, I'm breaking curfew. I was like, my mom says to be home, I'm going to be home, right? And my sister was the rebellious one, right? So she took on that role. And I think because my mom could see that I don't want to say conforming, but I was listening to her, right? I didn't defy what she told me at that point in my life, like I knew I didn't want to become what she was, but she was the breadwinner in the house when it comes to money. But like she also didn't drive. She's never driven in her life. So she was scared of drive. Like there were so many fears. And I remember when I was very young, I was like, I'm not going to drive either. Mom doesn't drive. I'm never going to drive. And then as I got older, I was like, oh my God, driving is like independence. Why wouldn't you want to drive? Right. And she was a big traveler. Like she really did like to travel. So it's when I try to think about her and like what she went through in life, it's so interesting because, you're scared of driving, but then you'll go travel the world by yourself. It's such a weird dynamic. And as I get old, like I'd love to sit down and have conversations with her about it. And I can't. Like that's just not
yeah.
possible. And then like growing up, there was the expectation, you're going to college. You're going to finish high school, you're going to college. You will meet someone, you'll get married, you'll buy a house, you'll have kids. That was it. We grew up like that was supposed to be step by step what we were supposed to do. And I broke the mold on that twofold. I don't have children. Now my condition, having hives, really played into that as well. It wasn't like a desire where I was like, I need to have kids. I was definitely open to it. And then there was a part of me at one point, I think I was 32, and I was like, I want kids, but I'm covered in hives, so I'm not going to have kids, because doctors at that point, I was not diagnosed until 10 years into having this. And a lot of doctors said that it could be genetic. I was in a support group. I was in a chronic hive support group at that point. And a lot of people that were having children, their children were getting hives. And I was like, I will not do this to another human. So that was taken off the table for me, which obviously my parents, like, they couldn't do anything about. But like quitting my corporate job, they were like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, I'm going to see the world is what I'm going to do. I remember having that conversation, and my dad was like horrified, right? Like almost as if I had murdered him, like as if I was like taking a knife and stabbing him. He's like, I don't understand. And then I remember we traveled to so many different places. So we quit our corporate job in September of 2011. We lived in St. John, USVI. And then I broke out. The last day before we were coming back to the States is when my hives started. And so they put me on prednisone in St. John. And I didn't know. I didn't know prednisone. I was an advocate for my health. They put me on prednisone, came back to the States. I was on prednisone for a week. You taper off. And we didn't have health insurance at the time. We had international health insurance. St. John, USVI still had this international health insurance. I was like, we're healthy. We don't need health insurance. Well, everyone, America screwed us with that. So we came back to the States, and 7 days later, after the prednisone wore off out of my system, I got a huge welt on my head. I was at dinner with Mike's entire extended family, and I had this huge welt on my head. And I remember his grandpa looking at me saying, like, did you hit your head? I was like, oh, I'm so clumsy. Like, didn't even relate it to the hives that were going on my leg. And then shit hit the fan overnight. My tongue swelled in my mouth, head to toe covered in hives. We went to doctor after doctor, misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis. And then my allergist said to me, some people have diabetes and they have to live on diabetic medication their whole life. You're going to have to live on prednisone your whole life. And I didn't understand what was going on in my body. I wasn't an advocate for myself. And I was like, okay, sure, okay, whatever you're saying, not realizing. Then one day after taking prednisone for about maybe a month, and I was taking such a high dosage, I got moon face. So my entire face looked like
Oh,
a
yeah.
big ball. And I was like, oh my God, like this is going to be the death of me, right? And so I went to so many different doctors, and they just didn't know what it was. Some doctors were like, you could die from this. My heart goes out to you, but we don't know how to help you. So I looked at Mike, my husband, and I said, if I'm going to die, we're going to continue traveling, and I'm going to die doing what I love. So we said goodbye, and I'm going to cry because we said goodbye to our family. And I did not think I would be making it. I thought that I was going to be dying on that trip, and traveling saved my life. So we went to Australia for a year after St. John. We went to Hawaii for like a couple weeks. Then we went to Australia, and I met a girl in Australia, and I call her my angel. Her name's Lily. And she said I was covered in hives from head to toe. And at that point, we were living in a caravan park, and it was so hot. It was in Broome, Australia. It's Northwest Australia. And it was so hot. And her and her boyfriend had this built out bus. And so during the day, they would go to work and they let me stay in their bus because it was cooler. And one day she came home and she said, I made you an appointment with a naturopath. Now, 14 years later, we all know about more natural medicine. Back in the day, like this wasn't talked about. And I was desperate. I was going to so many different doctors. And I said, okay, I don't know what this is. And that naturopath, I went into the office. They put this metal plate around my head. I sat there and I was like, I don't know what the hell is going on. They read all these things. She gave me all these Chinese herbs. 4 days later, my hives had subsided. Those herbs that day changed my life forever. Having those herbs, it didn't cure me, but it was able to put my hives at bay, that I was able to live an amazing, incredible life. Now, those herbs recently, like a couple years ago, have been discontinued. And so that's why I've hired an herbalist, because things have come so far now. And it's pretty wild, because this is kind of a jump forward, but because I am so spiritual and so woo, I did what's called a QHHT session. It's called Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. Basically, the practitioner, She speaks to you in a soft voice like this, and she hypnotizes you, sends you back to your past lives, and then has you tap into your subconscious. And when I was tapped into my subconscious, my spirit guide came to me. That was the first time I was able to speak like directly with her. And her name's Arabella. I never had heard that name before. And one of the questions that I'd ask the practitioner is, why am I getting these hives? How do I heal myself? What am I supposed to do? And the answer that came from that was that these hives are not going to kill me. That was the first thing. The second thing was, it's my journey to figure out how to cure it. And that's part of the reason I have it. And the third part was, in a future life, I'm going to be leading a movement that I have to know that herbs are literally going to save like humanity. After that session, I was pissed. I was like, what? I was like, these are the answers I get. I want real answers, right? Like, I want real legit answers. And now, fast forward, that was in right before COVID happened. So 5 years later, I'm working with an herbalist and she's blowing my mind. I'm learning about all of these herbs and how they work with the body. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to learn herbs. And she's like, oh, I have an entire course. You can become an herbalist. And I was like, done. So this fall, I'm going to be starting to take that course because I'm so like captured and enamored by herbs. 5 years ago, I was like, F this shit. Like, give me the answers. I just want to be cured. 5 years later, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Right. And so everything just takes time. It all comes full circle. Like, I have these hives for a specific reason. And that reason has already literally been given to me. Like, I'm already connected to it. And I didn't want that to be my truth. I wanted something simpler, So it's like the whole journey has been wild.
Yes, that's amazing. And there's so many things that you just said that are absolutely amazing. I love it. The
Quantum
QHHT,
healing hypnosis technique.
that sounds like such an amazing journey. And I completely understand about what you're saying. You're like, no, don't send me on this massive mission. Don't tell me this is my purpose. Just make me feel better. Just help me.
Just
and now
help
you're like,
me. Yeah.
yeah. Now you're in a place in your life where you can accept it, which is such a different thing. Okay. Tell me about your spiritual journey. I would love to hear more about that. Your connection to spirit.
Okay, so it started, that first encounter was 3 or 4, and then I saw spirits in like outline form. It was terrifying. So like literally outlines. Basically from middle school to the end of high school. Before, spirits would sometimes come to me, but it wasn't as like pressing. But then when I got to middle school and high school, I was like legit, like, what is going on? But I'm not going to talk about this because I'm crazy, right? And I've already gone to my parents. I didn't feel like that was a safe space to go to. Then I went to college and I would beg. I would like literally sit there and be like, please, I don't want this. I don't want this. Please go away. I don't want this. I don't want this. Please go away. Didn't go away. Then I went to college and I was going to doctors and everything and still saying, I don't want this. And then I started getting visions, like having these visions and stopped seeing the outlines. And I was like, this is just coincidental. Like the universe, God, whatever you want to say, has listened. These outlines are finally gone. Because it's scary. It was scary for me. It was just terrifying for me. But now I started getting these visions. So I start receiving the visions. At the same time, my grandma, later in my college, passes away. And I start to be able to communicate with her and talk with her. And so during this part where I can talk to her, my sister finds out. And she's like, what? You can talk to Nan? This is amazing. I'm going to go on this journey, right? So my sister then becomes a Reiki practitioner. She starts working for a psychic or like volunteering for a psychic. She's like, I'm all in, right? She's like, I'm going to get these powers. And I was like, this isn't power. Like, this is like, now I did love being able to communicate with my grandma. That was amazing. So like one day we were in the car. This is kind of a crazy story. I'm in the car with my sister. She lives in Delaware and we're just driving. She's driving. And my grandma, she never screamed. She was like very kind. Like you just like want to cuddle her. All of a sudden started screaming at me like, top left drawer, top left drawer, top left drawer. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? So my sister gets home and I run to my sister's room and I'm literally like scavenging her top left drawer because I'm feeling like literal this energy surging through me of panic, like a pure
Yeah.
panic. And my sister knew something was wrong. She runs up after me. She's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know. Not Nan keeps saying top left drawer, top left drawer." And she's like, "It's not that drawer." I was like, "What?" She's like, "It's Jeremy's drawer." She's like, "Literally last night, we took the gun out of Jeremy's top left drawer and we put it in the safe." And I was like, "Well, what the hell? If it's already in the safe, why does it matter, right?" And I was like, "Does not Nan not know it's in the safe?" And I was like, "Well, you need to have a conversation with your kids about guns. I don't know, maybe that's what's prompted this, but you're going to have that conversation, right?" So she ended up keeping her kids home from school the next day and having that conversation, and nothing came of it. I don't know if that there have been a lot of things in my life that I don't know if what happened had changed the course of history. And I do believe that that's true. I think a lot of things that I'm getting these downloads for are changing the course of history, which is just wild. Like, and if I wasn't in it myself, I wouldn't believe it. So that was one thing that happened. And then my friend Tom, he passed away. He took his own life. And him and I in high school, like we didn't really date. We like were seeing each other, but we were friends. So he started communicating with me. And it was really interesting. This might be TMI, but he would always ask to come into showers with me. And I was like, let's bring it on. Let's shower together, right? And it sounds so interesting and like weird and like, but that is what was going on, right? And so one day he came to me and he said his sister, Lynette, is pregnant. And so Lynette had already had a miscarriage. And I was like, what? She's pregnant? She really wanted to have babies. So I called my sister. I was like, oh my God, Lynette's pregnant. She's like, how do you know this? I was like, oh, well, Tom told me. Like, not even like thinking, it's not real facts, Alisa. Like no one, I was like, oh, well, Tom told me. And she's like, well, I'm going to call Lynette and like not ask her, but like, I'm going to like tread. And I was like, tread lightly because this is a top. Like, what if I'm wrong? I'm always still to this day, I'm like, but what if I'm wrong? So she starts asking the questions of like, I don't know what she's asking. And Lynette basically says, what are you getting at? Like, what are you getting at here? And my sister said, well, now, Lynette knew I could communicate with Tom because I had told Lynette that. And she said, well, Alisa talked to Tom and Tom said, you're pregnant. And Lynette was like, stop. I found out yesterday. Now that baby went
Oh,
to full term. She had that baby. And so like, there's just been a lot of things that have been, there's also like another part of that story that was like kind of crazy that I think changed history and saved that baby's life. But there's been a lot of different things that have happened that I just can't ignore anymore. And so basically what led me to become a Reiki practitioner is I started having these visions and I was like, coincidence, coincidence. I kept chalking up everything as a coincidence because it was safe for me. Not even realizing that I'm doing is like consciously doing that. And then I was laying on the acupuncture table. So I was seeing this acupuncturist who was also a life coach and she knew everything about me. She knew I could connect with spirit. So I'm on the table, literally pins in my body from head to toe. And I have a vision and it's a very horrific vision. It's a vision of a residential neighborhood. My point of view is from behind the scene, watching it happen. There's a boy on his bike. He has brunette hair. He's about 8 years old. Big truck comes, like a truck comes in the residential neighborhood, doesn't see him. He goes under the tree, he gets hit, goes under the truck, dies. I'm literally in panic. I'm laying there, these needles are in me. I'm looking at these needles. I'm like, can I take these needles out of me? Like, what is, like, pure panic is running, like the adrenaline's running through my body. She finally comes in and I'm like, I'm shook. Like, I'm shook. And because these visions that I'm like chalking up as coincidence, they're smaller things happening. They're not like this major event. And so I also see numbers. And so I'm like, oh my God, it's going to happen on this date. It has to be. It has to be happening on this date. And for some reason, I was like, it's got to be my nephew. Like, why would it be anyone else? Like, why am I having this vision? So I call my sister. My sister knows I'm having these visions. So I tell her about it and I'm like, don't let him ride a bike. And she doesn't talk to me for like almost a week. She was really upset with me. I was like, this is not my fault, right? And so she didn't leave his side, but also on that date, she didn't leave his side and nothing happened. And I was like, all right, life is good. He's okay. And then from when I had that session, 3 months later, the residential neighborhood that I was living in Breckenridge, Colorado, the exact same thing happened to a little boy.
No.
And I lost it. I thought I was supposed to save him. And I went on one of the darkest journeys of my life. And my husband was like, "You're crying like you've lost your child." And I was like, "I basically feel like I've murdered this child." And it's still really, even though I know that's not the truth, it's really hard. So I went on this downward spiral. Now, my sister's already a Reiki practitioner at this point. I go to visit my sister. I'm like, I have to get the hell out of here. I go to visit my sister. And what's crazy is that actual incident, they swept it under the carpet so fast. Like people didn't even get to hear or mourn because these people just had moved here from Denver. So they hadn't they weren't full on local. That part of it also really upset me. But
Yeah.
so my sister said to me, she said, "I think you need to get your attunement in Reiki." Again, I'm in another position, with my health, I'm in a position where I'm desperate. I'm like, I'll do anything. I'm desperate again. I'm like, I'll do anything. So the practitioner comes in and she's like, "Oh my God, my body's filled with chills." That's the first thing she says to me. And I was like, "Well, that's weird." And so I'm working with her and I get my attunement with her. And I said to her during this process, I said, "I'm not going to be practicing. This is just for me. Trying to find answers." And she said, "Okay, sure. Yep, you will be practicing." I was like, "No, I won't." She's like, "Yep, you will." I was like, "Okay." So then I'm still visiting my sister. I'm with my sister for a while. And her friend really wants to have a Reiki session. And my sister at that point was still doing free Reiki sessions for her friend. She's like, "I'm done doing free Reiki sessions." I was like, I'll do it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll do it. So during the Reiki session, I start having visions. And I'm like, "Oh my God." And then so I'm at the so the left side of your body is your feminine, the right side of your body is your masculine. And so I'm at her feminine side of her body. And at her solar plexus, this is where you hold your power or relation to money. I feel a shackle go around my right ankle, which is my masculine side. And I was like, so I get feelings, I'll see different things. And so I say to her, "I don't know what this is about, but I felt a shackle go around my right ankle." And I knew nothing about the woman. She starts literally losing it in tears. And she's like, "My son has just been put in jail for murder." Later, he was charged for murder. I was like, "Oh my God, yikes." But in that moment, it's so selfish. And I tell people, they're like, "How'd you get started with Reiki?" I'm like, it's kind of selfish, to be honest. I realized that I can harness these visions that I'm having during my Reiki sessions. So my Reiki sessions, I don't call them Reiki anymore. I call them soul blueprint sessions. And what they basically are is I'll be given little points. And if you help me connect the points, we can get you on your path of where you need to go. If you're not going to help me connect the points, you're just going to be scattered and be like, "What?" Because I have some clients that don't want to talk much. They just want to hear what I have to say. But if you're not helping me connect it, I really don't know how to help you on your journey. So, I've found with close friends, they don't want to fully let everything go, which totally respectable. At least in the beginning of the journey for this with me, I have this one girlfriend, and I got to her root chakra, and I had all these points, and then she unleashed everything, and I was like, "Well, that's kind of hard. How much information did we already put out there that we haven't connected the dots? Now we have to backtrack." So from that moment, I was like, "Okay, I can use this. I can do this. We can form a bond, universe. Let's agree that I'll have these visions through Reiki." So that was my journey for a really long time. And I still do soul blueprint sessions, but they also take a lot of my energy, a lot of it. And so now also I've been finding that I don't necessarily need to do those soul blueprint sessions. I could do a reading on a person in 20 minutes and I don't have to be doing that. But my trip to Bali was just so ground rattling for me because we did a Balinese offering ceremony and I knew nothing about it. So I actually went to Bali to photograph a 2-week women's empowerment retreat. And so I was the photographer also who was allowed to participate. So there was 12 women. I photographed the first 2 women in the offering ceremony. And then the retreat leader was like, "All right, Alisa, sit down." She wants me to be a part of it. So I sit down and it's so amazing because Spirit says, "Are you ready?" And I was like, "Ready for what?" the whole room filled with spirits. I mean, people were like the other 8 girls were taking pictures of me because I was waterworks. Like I was like losing it. And my grandma, who I haven't connected with now for probably like 8 years, I was like, I guess she moved on. She's not here. Like I've talked to her. She hasn't connected back with me. She was there. And she comes up and she hugs me and I'm like, "Where have you been? Like, I thought you had moved on to another body." And she's like, "Calm down, Alisa," because that's like what she would say to me. And I told my sister that. She starts like dying laughing. And she's like, "I'm here with you now, but I've also moved on." And I was like, oh. So that is still having me process like all of these things spiritually because I feel like I'm very woo, but I'm also very grounded. And so for all of these things, like so many things have happened in my life and in this journey. Like there's been 2 different times and you won't believe it, but spirit has used my body, come into my body almost like a ghost experience, the energy surging through me and I didn't realize. So I'll tell you the one story. So she reached out to me and she said, "Alisa, you saved my life." And I really started thinking about what happened. So this was in Costa Rica. This was about a year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years ago. She came to me. I had met her actually on a photography retreat and we had become friends. And so she had come to me and she said, "Alisa, I need a Reiki session. I just need help." And I was like, "Sure." So I can do Reiki virtually. Or soul blueprint session, whatever you want to call it. And so I was like, "No problem. We can do that." We're doing her entire session. And what's really cool is this session, because we're on Zoom, I recorded. And so spirit came to me. Now, the first time spirit came to me and asked to use my body, I was shit terrified. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what is going on? Right. And so I could tell you that first story, but because I talked to this girl just recently, spirit comes and is like, "I have to use your body again." And I'm ready. Right. After the first experience happened, after I processed, I was like, if you need to use my body again, I'm ready because it's like a feeling a human doesn't get to experience. It's an outer body, like full surge energy, like you can conquer the world, right? So spirit steps into my body and is using my body. And I am just in it. I am like basking in my glory because the surge of energy is running through me. My hands are on her, placing on her. So spirit uses my body, everything. Then the end of the session happens. And so we're talking after, and I'm like, "That was amazing." Like, it was amazing, right? And she said, "Why would that happen? Why would spirit use your body?" And I said, "Look, the only other time spirit used my body is because this girl on my table, she was suicidal. I didn't know it at the time, had no idea, and she walked out and she was no longer suicidal." And she shared that with me, like, later on, right? Like, that was her journey later on, where she was able to, like, come forward and tell me that. And I was like, "But you're not suicidal. So, I mean, I don't know why. I have no idea." And she said, "Alisa, I kid you not, the pills were in my hand last night." And I started crying, like just full on crying because number one, as a friend, I was like, "What? Like, how did I not know?" And I just like my heart went out to her. And so I had like touched base with her and she was doing good. And so I just touched base. We just finally got on a phone call like 2 years later, right? And she said, "Alisa, I have found Jesus. I am living my best life, and you saved my life." And for a person to tell you that you saved their life, and I know I'm just the medium, right? I'm the middleman. Like if spirit hadn't stepped into like, I'm the conduit. Just really amazing. So like spirit has scared the shit out of me, but also has been such an integral part of my life and my journey and me helping other people. So I don't like to rely on spirit. Like when I'm doing my coaching, I love breath work because it taps you into your body. I love being able to have a soul blueprint session when someone works with me in my one-on-one coaching container. We'll always start with a soul blueprint session because sometimes people are a little bit reserved and they don't want to like give you everything. Well, when we do a soul blueprint session, it's on the table. Like things are on the table that they're like, shit, it's already on the table. Well, let's go. Right. And so we tap into all of the things that are going on. And then we actually physically tap into your body so we can start releasing. Then we're coaching through everything and we're going back, like we're coaching breath work. So we're not holding on to it anymore because most of our trauma is being kept in our body. Like, yeah, of course it's in our mind and we meditate and we do things like that. But for me, I'm very much an advocate of getting out of your mind and into your body. And so we hold on to so much. And so like, I know that my journey with hives too, there's more that I'm still holding on to and not letting go. And maybe the priestesses and the shaman that I talk to are right in that I'm not stepping into my full power. And so that just happened at the end of May and I've been doing more and more work. Yeah, it's been pretty, my journey has been pretty crazy in that sense.
That is so amazing. I feel like the amount of chills that you gave me, and like, I mean, honestly, my eyes turned up several times while you were telling this story, and the visions that you had, like, it's amazing. It's amazing. So it's absolutely a gift and a blessing that you have this connection and that you're using it to help people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
it's
is so
cool.
interesting, right? Like how connected we are and how connected things are. And it's so, as a person that's nowhere near your level of spirituality, like kind of trying to understand how you could even tap into that. Because I've had these weird moments where I have a twin sister, okay? And I have these weird moments where like something happens. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like, why did that idea just pop into my head? Or why did I just do that? I will tell you a really random story that I likely won't include on the podcast, but
No, you have to.
okay, maybe I will. Many years ago, I was living in New York City. It was afternoon. I walked into, I don't know if afternoon or weekend, but I walked into the kitchen and I grabbed our gigantic butcher knife out of the knife holder and I put it against my arm. And there was no reason, nothing going on in my head. I had literally zero thoughts that were going on. I wasn't feeling sad. I wasn't feeling anyway. I just did that. And I was like, huh, that's odd. And I put it back. And I was still very close with my sister at the time. I think it was the following day, she told me that she and her boyfriend went to the hospital because he slit his wrist. He was suicidal with a giant butcher's knife in and I was like, oh, wow,
I
that's
got
weird.
chills.
Like I was shaken because I'm like, well, that's very odd that happened. Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make it
But
to me.
it's
And I was
not
like,
odd. The thing is, I think that most people have the ability to connect. I think for some people, it comes a little bit easier because there's so many of the times I'm like, why me? Like, why is this possible for me? Where other people are like, how do you do it? Which another cool story just happened with that. But anyway, you have the ability too, right? I think it's opening up our chakras, our crown chakra to let ourselves fully feel it. Now, for whatever reason, I've almost been like plummeted into it. That's like that. No, this is what's gonna, it keeps coming full force. So, and I don't know if that means, on my journey, I don't know if you've ever read Journey of Souls, but it's by Michael Newton. But he talks about like the in between lives, like what happens between, he basically is a hypnotist and he starts taking people back to their life so that he can hypnotize them. Then he realizes he can take them back to past lives and in between lives. But I truly believe, like when I was reading that book, I was like, oh my God, like it just, when it feels like you've been there before, that's how it felt for me. And I truly believe like we choose our path in every single life that we're in. And some lives are going to be a lot harder. Some are going to be a lot easier. But as you ascend and you keep going, things will progress. So I don't know if I'm like further along, but then sometimes I find myself like super immature and I'm like, I don't know, like that's pretty immature, right? So it's interesting, but that's not coincidental. Like that just shows you that's something like, it's like the vision of me and that boy. It's showing you, well, you have this. Do you want to try to tap into it more? Or do you wanna ignore that it happened?
yeah, that's so crazy. Thank you. Let's go back in time because you had such an amazing life and your experience, your spiritual experience has literally been with you your whole life, which is something that I don't think many people, at least many people that I've spoken with, have.
Like, it starts later.
It starts later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it starts later. Exactly. So you've been led and maybe with not the same acceptance and appreciation as you have now, but there have been like attempts to guide you at certain points in your life and since you were very little.
Yeah.
So your story will be different, but I'm very curious about what your life was like in corporate. You mentioned a little bit of it. Tell me about that. Tell me about your experience and tell me about when you finally decided, like, what made you want to leave?
So I will say, I'll preface it that like, when I was in college, I wanted to do a semester at sea. And my parents, I'm very fortunate that my parents were paying for my college education. And so I went to my parents, I did all the research, got all the information, and it was going to make me stay another semester. So I went to my dad and I pitched it and he was like, you can do it, but you're going to have to pay for an extra semester. And I was just like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's a lot of money, right? And so when I graduated from college, that was always like a regret. Why didn't I do a semester at sea? Now I'm in this corporate job. So that was always lingering in my subconscious. So, corporate, I first started at an outdoor advertising firm. I was there for 9 months. Like I said, I had a coworker and I was bullied. I also did not really like my boss. She just had no empathy. So like my dad had a heart attack and I was like, I have to go. My dad just had a heart attack and she's like, well, it's going to be a sick day. Right. So this was my first experience with corporate and it was very toxic. And I was just like, I can't do this my whole life. Like, what is happening? Right. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to leave that job within 9 months and find another job at Time Inc., so the publishing company. So I was in the licensing and syndication department, which basically in my role, I was the middleman between all of the United States magazines. So like People Magazine, Golf Magazine, Fortune Magazine, and all the international magazines. And I was put in charge of negotiating rates for the photographs to go into the international magazines. So this is kind of like what kind of led me to become a photographer too, which is really cool. So I was in that position and I was happy. I didn't hate it. I didn't dread it. And then I was promised a promotion. And this was, I think, 3 years in. I promised a promotion. And that year came around and we were in a recession and my boss was like, we just couldn't pull it off. Right. And so we were in a recession, understood it, whatnot. And then the following year, he said 100%, like I was busting my butt, right? I was like doing a lot. I was going above and beyond. I worked with Australia. They were called Who magazine. And so on Tuesdays, I would go to work at 9 a.m. and I would literally be in the office till 11 or 12 at night and then still have to go on Wednesday at 9 a.m., right? So like I was giving a lot and I did get a little bit of overtime, but like when I think about the money I was making 40, I think with overtime, 48,000 a year with overtime, which
And
was
you're
a
living
lot.
in the Northeast New York
I'm
City area.
living in New York City, right? So
Yeah.
luckily, my husband was paying more of the bills at that point because, like, I think we were splitting it like 2/3, 1/3 because I just couldn't, like, I couldn't do it, right? And so that following year, the director, he's like, 100% Alisa, you are going to get a promotion. And I was like, all right. I'm going to get a promotion. Like, let's do this, right? So promotions always happened in March. This was in January. He has looked me dead in the eyes several times and said, 100% this is happening. So March comes, the day comes. I walk into his office. I sit down. He says, have a seat. He looks me in the eye and I'm ready. I'm ready for like, I'm getting a promotion. Like, I am excited. Big smile on my face. He looks me dead in the face and he says, Alisa, I'm so sorry. I couldn't pull it off. I look him dead in the eyes and I say, fuck you. I get up, literally get up. We have like they had like sliding doors. Slide his door shut. I slam the freaking thing, go get my stuff, and I leave. And I'm fuming. Like I'm just a rage. Like, how dare you, right? So I leave and I go home. I call Mike. Now, at this point, Mike, my husband, has been calling me almost every day for years, being like, it's so nice outside. I just want to be outside. His favorite part of the day is going for a walk at lunch. So every day I get a call, him saying it's so nice outside, not saying he wants to quit his job, just saying it's so nice outside. I just wish I could be outside, right? So I am pissed. So I leave. Like, I'm not even like, I'm like, F this job. I'm so over it, right? And so I call my husband and he's like, all right, well, we'll figure it out. And I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Like, whatever. So I go in the next day. I'm like, I'm going to be fired. I just said, fuck you to my boss. So, like, let's just be prepared that I'm going to pack all my stuff up and I'm going to leave. So he calls me in.
Okay. Hold on. I have to ask you this before you continue. You said fuck you to your boss and you stormed out of work. Understandably so, because this is a bullshit situation, everything you've been through. Did you ever have a moment of like, should I even go back? Did you think
I
about
think
that?
I think I did have that moment, but I was just like, my stuff was still there. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
grab all my stuff. So I was like, I got to get my stuff. And I was like, at this point, you've disrespected me on such a deep level. So like, I just didn't care. I didn't give it. Like, I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. I was like,
Yeah.
F you. I went in the next day being like, I don't care, because I will say that I've been very confident in the value I bring, and I was working my butt off, right? So it was also in a time where like there were more jobs that were abundant. We weren't in a recession anymore. I walked in, I was sitting at my desk. I just pretended like life was just like as per usual, but I was already done, right? I was already done. He calls me in and I sit down and he says, "Alisa, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," right? So he's apologetic instead of being like, "You're fired." And I'm just indifferent. I'm just like, so I don't remember when it happened, if it happened that first night or the second day after. I have to ask Mike if he remembers. But I basically went home and I was like, Mike, I'm ready to quit my job and travel the world. I'm done with this. I'm not doing this. I want to see the world. Are you game? And he looked at me like, huh. So we're living in a New York City apartment. It's not cheap, right? It's not like as expensive as it is now, but it's not cheap. And when we had first signed up for this apartment, it was the recession. So we got a better deal. But now our lease was coming to an end, rent was coming to an end, or at least whatever. And it was going up like another $2,000 per month. It was insane, right? And so we knew that that was coming. I was so fed up. I was like, I'm quitting and I'm going. Are you coming with me? And he looked at me and he was like, gonna think about it. He goes into the bedroom, spends hours in the bedroom, comes back out, and he's like, let's do it. I'm like, let's fucking go. Right. So basically, didn't get the promotion. Now we're going to travel. Right. Now, what is amazing is so I reported to what was she called? The assistant manager or something, whatever. I reported to not the director. And so we had goal setting sessions. And so in my goal setting session, she would always say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, in the Caribbean, sipping a margarita. And she's like, Alisa, we need to be realistic here. And I was like, I am being realistic, right? So then fast forward to this conversation that I'm having with him and he's apologizing. He had asked me about my goal, like, what is your goals now? And I said, my goal is to be in the Caribbean sipping a margarita. And he's like, Alisa, like, let's be realistic. I know you didn't get this promotion, but what's your goal? I said, to be in the Caribbean sipping a margarita. And he was just like, I'm not going to F with her, right? She's pissed. So I was like, okay. So Mike and I were trying to figure out where we wanted to go. Australia was one of the places we really wanted to go. We had also like talked about it a little bit, maybe a couple years prior, and like threw it out to his family, and his family was like super against it. And so we kind of like dropped it. But then this made it really real. And I was like, I'm doing it. Like this is what I want to be doing. And if he had said no, we'd probably figure out something else, but like he didn't. So it doesn't really matter. Like I was like, I'm going, right? And so it was just such a game changer. So I remember I recorded the conversation and I don't know where it is, but I recorded the conversation on the phone that I had. I put it on record. I went into the office and it was one of the best days of my life to quit. I was like, I actually gave them extra time because I know everyone can be replaceable, but no one knew how to do the job that I did. So I ended up giving them like 6 weeks, which was way nicer than I had to be because I told him to and he was like, please. So he like begged me a little bit and I was like, fine. He's like, so what are you going to be doing? I was like, oh, I'm going to be going to the Caribbean, sipping a margarita. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what are you going to be doing? Now, one of my lifelong dreams was to work on a catamaran. And there was this one company that I had my eyes set on. I was very intensely going after this company, right? So I would call them like weekly. And to work on this boat was very high demand. It was an all girl crew except the captain. He had built the boat. And so I had a lot of background. I went to college for marketing. I had a lot of background in marketing. So I pitched them. I said, let me work on the boat 1 or 2 days a week. I'll be your I'll do your marketing. So that's how I got hired. And so I already knew that I was going to be working on that boat. So he's like, so what are you going to be doing? Like, how are you going to make money? Right. He's like, all these questions. I was like, oh, I'm working on a catamaran. And his mouth went from like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no, I'm going to be living my best life. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for not giving me that promotion. Because what I have learned is rejection is redirection. Every single time, rejection is redirection. And when you're in it, you might not be able to see it, but I was able to see it pretty clearly. And I was stoked. So Mike and I waited until our lease ran out and we sold a lot of our stuff. We packed a lot of stuff in his mom's garage and we moved to the Caribbean. And before we did that, I was this middleman between all the professional photographers, and I was looking at becoming a journalist. And to become a journalist, you had to go back to so much schooling, all this stuff to be like a photojournalist. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't want to do that. But what I will do is I'll buy a camera. So I bought a camera, and on my travels, I taught myself everything. So I put it in auto and then I'd go to like check the settings and then I'd change it all to manual. And that's how I learned photography. And so we went from St. John in the USVI, where I worked on the catamaran and a hiking tour guide. And then I also was a hostess. I'd never worked in a restaurant. I was a hostess. At the end, they asked me to waitress, which is so funny. I'd never opened a bottle of wine. I'm 28 years old, never like opened a bottle of wine. And I remember my first wine that I'm at this table, they order and I'm like, oh God. And I'm trying to open it. And the guy's like, do you want me to open that for you? I was like, yes, please. And I handed it to the customer and my manager was watching. He's like, no, Alisa, like, no, this can't happen. I was like, God, I'm 8 years old. I can't open a bottle of wine. But then we moved to Australia. And what's amazing about Australia is they're very accepting of that. You can get jobs for a couple months at a time and go from job to job. So Mike bartended, I waitressed all around Australia. Like, it was amazing, except I was covered in hives. So there were parts of it where I just couldn't work. Like, I just couldn't do it. But we made everything work. We always made it work. And I think what is really important in this journey and our journey is everyone's like, you need so much money to travel. And it's just not true because when we went, I'm not going to lie, when we went to St. John, we had gotten married. We had a nice fund of like $25,000 or $30,000. That was amazing, right? And I was working, Mike was working, so we didn't touch that money. That money completely disappeared when I got sick. For we spent 3 months back in the States between St. John and Australia, all on medical bills. All on medical.
Wow.
We had a couple $1,000s to our name. And I was like, I'm going. Like, I'm doing this. If I'm going to, when you are given like maybe it's a death sentence and you're not going to live, you don't care. You're just like, I'm going. I'll figure it out. And that's exactly what we did. So we did not have much money, but we made it work. We did a lot of home exchanges where we stayed at different homes and did odd jobs for the people. They gave us room and board. And then we waitressed, he bartended. Like, we did what we had to do and we made it work. And so, I mean, you should have some money, right? You can't have like no money, but you can make it work. Like, you can make it work and you don't have to have $20,000 in your account. And I know times have changed and things are more expensive, but when we went to Australia, like right now, the conversion rate, like, I will say, if you're going to quit your job and you want to travel and do it that route, like you really want to travel, go to locations that are cheaper instead of more expensive. When we went to Australia, it was double the price of the United States the year that we were there. And that probably wasn't the smartest move for us, but it just shows you, we still made it work. And if you want something bad enough, and for me, I just wanted to meet different people and I wanted to see the world. Like, I'm very much an extrovert. I try to put myself out there in situations that scare the hell out of me, that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think when you push yourself outside of your comfort zone, that is when doors really start to open for you. And that's just like really been the story of my life. And so after Australia, we went to New Zealand, we went to Indonesia, and then we came back to the States, spent 3 months like hanging out close to our family. And then we came to Colorado and we were only going to we drove in. It's funny because I'm very like particular. We drove into Breckenridge and I was like, wow, I could live. It's like a movie town if you haven't been here. And I was like, I think I could live here, right? And I had never said that about a place. And we were here for 2 years and then we're just like, all right, like, I think it's time. We like need to go to our next place. But then I had started my photography business and literally the universe was like, no, that's not going to happen. And my photography business took off and I went full time in photography after 2 years, which is like usually in the photography world isn't a normal thing to be able to do. And then COVID happened and everyone, was shook. And then 2021 came along and it's freezing here. We have really long winters. And so Mike and I are like, let's get out of here for the winter. Yeah, it's just been such a wild, wild, wild journey. But if you want to quit your corporate job, whether you want to start your own business, like just go after it. I was watching Armageddon with my friend last night. And I know it's an old movie. And he's like, God, we're just a blip. Like we're just like a blip and life is so short. And it really is. Like we take it for granted a lot of the times. And for me, I'm just grateful because every single day that I wake up, if I can move, like even when I have hives, like today I have like 3 different hives on my body, I'm like, I'm okay. I'm moving. Like my eyes aren't swelled. My tongue's not swelled. Like life is good. Sitting in gratitude and being able to, my mantra, I believe everyone should have a mantra. My mantra in life is everything is always working out for me. So even when I was covered in hives, everything was still working out for me. I was still alive. I was just navigating. I was navigating this path because this is the path that I'm meant to be on so I can help others, whether it's going to be in this life with herbs, which it could be. I hope to have a full life ahead of me, or if it's going to be in a future life, like
There's a massive amount of acceptance in what you just said.
You know that moment when you realize that you can't keep living the way that you've been living? You've probably heard several of my guests talk about that already. If that resonates with you and you're feeling like you're in that moment, you're in luck. I've created a 30-day program that's going to help you become unstuck, reconnect with your joy, reconnect with yourself, and reconnect with your values. We're going to work together to figure out your next step, your vision, and your path forward. This is an invitation for you to live the life of your dreams that truly lights you up. Visit 101waysout.com to get started.
And some people love corporate. Some people absolutely love it. And if you absolutely love it and you love working for someone, but if you have that desire to start your own business, to work for yourself, then just start. Like just take the action.
Yeah.
I think it's also important, like taking the messy action. It's kind of what I'm going through right now because I want to start a membership. And I'm like, do I have to have everything figured out? And what I'm realizing is like, no, I don't have, I just have to show up and I have to encourage, I have to motivate, tap people into their body and like, let's go. Like, and just build that fire within someone to be like, I can do this. I can do this.
I think you'll be great at that. I think that'll go over super well.
Thank you.
So you'll have to keep me posted as you build that out, and I will share it as well as I build this out.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that.
I feel like you mentioned this a little bit, but what else did you guys do to prepare for your exit? Was it a really long thought out process or?
No. So the whole thing happened very quickly. Like a few years prior, I had dropped Australia on the table. We had mentioned it. Family poo-pooed it. And then when I came home and I said that, and he was like, all right, I'm in. We probably had maybe 4 months left in our lease. So I think the hardest part with me was not to be like, F you guys, I'm leaving in my corporate job. But my best friend, this is an interesting thing. My best friend at the time, she came to me with a bag of clothes and she said, well, now that you're going to be homeless, I want you to have this. I was like, homeless? I'm about to go travel the world. I don't know what you're talking about, girl, right? Homeless. And so it's just different. It's interesting, different perspectives. But besides selling furniture, I mean, I really try. I mean, and it's hard also because we have built a life in Colorado. And so I had a photography studio and whatnot. But I really try to live as minimalistly as possible because we don't need stuff. I much rather spend my time on experiences. And if I'm going to spend my money, typically it's on going to be photography equipment or things for my business or breath work. I do 9D breath work, which is where you use headphones and it's a 9-dimensional experience. It's amazing. I just led a session last night for a big group. It's just things like that will elevate other people's lives in different ways. But I'm not a girl that spends a lot of money on clothes. I buy cheap clothes. I don't care. I think it's important where your priorities are, and everyone is different, right? But for me, it's to experience as much as life has to offer. This life in this body being this human. I do believe in reincarnation. I believe in all of it. I mean, I have to. I've seen it myself, but it's just really embodying who you want to be and living authentically. If you want the bougie bags and you want the bougie life, like more power to you, right? Like that's totally fine. It's just like I rather be camping in a tent, glamping. Let me say glamping. I want to be on my air mattress, like, but I like to be out in nature. I try to spend as much time as I can in nature. I rather be spending my time like in the gym and working out my body, and it's just everyone's different, right? But do what you love because life is just, it can be taken away so quickly. Like it's just recently there's been a lot of like death surrounding me and not necessarily like people I've known closely, but one of my clients' husbands just passed away this past weekend. And then one of my friend's best friends just got murdered by a hit and run. There's been like so like just really saying, Alisa, just embrace, embrace every second of it and do the things that scare you, whether it's, if it's in you're single and you want to go talk to the guy, go talk to the guy. If you want to start a business, start a business. If you want to, whatever it is, like whatever, if you want to move, if you want to change your environment, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had to do it all over again, is there anything you would change about your process of leaving your corporate job and starting this new lifestyle? Is there anything you wish you had known?
I wish that I started even earlier. Honestly, I started at 28, but I wish that it was even earlier, but I'm glad it was 28. I'm glad that we were able to do it. And also to realize that I think corporate puts us into a box, and I am so multidimensional and multi-passionate, and you can create a life that you love and be everything that you are. I think there's also a lot of coaches out there that tell you niche down, niche down. So if you are starting your own business, they say you have to be this one person, you have to do this one thing. And if you love doing multiple things, like I love lifting women up, but I can lift women up through so many different modalities. So like you can have
Yeah.
an overarching umbrella of what you want to be, and then you can have different things underneath there that like really amplify that. So just allowing yourself to fully be you, I think for so long, my parents told me, you're going to work corporate. It wasn't even like, now I think the generation that we're in, the younger kids are like, I don't know if I'm going to do that. Growing up for me, that wasn't a thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to college. Parents are saying I'm going to college. I'm going to college, right? And I have no regrets going to college. Actually, it's quite interesting. When I was in college, I called my dad my sophomore year and I said, I'm changing my major to art. And he said, if you do that, I won't pay for your college, but best of luck. And I was like, he said, you can minor in art, but you can't major in art. And I was pissed again. But I was also very stubborn, but I had enough like intelligence to be like, I don't want to pay for college. And like, it was no joke. He would make me pay. I was like, I don't want to pay for college. Right. And so I'm going to stay in business. And that was probably like one of the biggest blessings I could have done, learning different parts of marketing and finance and accounting. And I mean, there's so much that goes into being an entrepreneur, but just don't let fear scare you away from it.
Yeah. Well, were you scared at all when you took the leap?
When we took the leap to just try, because I didn't even take the leap to become an entrepreneur. I took the leap to like, I'm going to see the world, right? It's very funny. Before like blogs were like, or maybe blogs were more of a thing back then than they are now. My first blog was called noworriesnofear.com. And I would just like blog about my life. And I will say, I think a lot of people probably do have this fear of like, is it going to work out? Because my mantra is everything always works out for me. It's not something I just say, I embody it. It's a core belief for me. So no, I wasn't scared. And like, I'm not saying life is like sunshine and rainbows and so easy. It is not. And owning a business, I own several businesses. It's not. But when shit feels like it's falling apart, I always come back to everything is always working out for me. And I just sit in it and I let myself, like I literally close my eyes and I let myself feel that energy surge through my body. And just knowing that even when things get really hard, even when it's like the hard of the hard of the hard, like in so much pain, covered in head to toe hives, like, and I feel like I'm being burned in an incinerator. It's not itchy for me. I feel like I'm being burned alive. I'm like, everything is always working out for me. Like, and I have no regrets. So if I were to die today, I have lived a full life. I have lived an amazing life. And I think a lot of people can't say that. They can't say that
Yeah.
they're living their best life. Like I wake up and I'm like, what's going on the docket today? Like I don't want to wake up to an alarm, but I wake up and I'm happy and I'm pumped and I'm excited for what's ahead. And I think a lot of people wake up and they're just like, I'm exhausted. I don't want to do this. Like, how can my life change? You want your life to change? You have to make the decision. You have to like have that within you, that burning desire to take that action because no one will do it for you.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like this is an obvious question, but if you can summarize for me, what was your life before you left corporate, and what's your life like now? What are the
My
biggest,
life
starkest differences?
Yeah, I mean, and I did love my life before corporate, like, I was still this happy-go-lucky gal, but, like, I had to wake up to an alarm, I was exhausted, I didn't love what I was doing, I knew I was meant to help people and make a difference in other people's lives, which by negotiating rates of photographs, I wasn't doing, and I just I felt trapped, I felt like I hated having what I hated the most was like, I wanna go on a vacation. I have to take vacation days. We only got 2 weeks vacation days. Like, that is bullshit, right? Like, we should be
It
able to
is.
there are more like progressive companies now that allow you to take more and like but that is a part that I just hated. Or if I was sick, you have to take a sick day. So last year was the first year I was turning 40 and I said to him, I really want to live on my own. I met him when I was young. I met him when I was 21. We got married at 25. I had lived with my parents before, and then I moved in right with him. I had never lived on my own. So last summer was the first summer I lived on my own. And I also had a boyfriend at that point. I was with my boyfriend for 6.5 years, broke up with him last August, and things were just it wasn't the summer I wanted to live. It wasn't, like, by myself. So when I came back and I stayed quite a long time by myself. I stayed almost 6 months away from Mike because I was processing a lot of things. So in January, like, I went back to Costa Rica and I said, "Look, I love you. I freaking love you, but I love time alone." He was like, "I love it too." And I was like, "Can we do it every year?" And he's like, "Yeah, maybe not for 6 months, but yeah." So he's spending full time in Costa Rica. I'm going back in October, 4 months away from each other. And it's just so empowering. So like maybe you can't take 4 months away. Like I understand a lot of people have children and whatnot, but even going on a trip by yourself, just being alone by yourself, pushing yourself outside of your comfort because some days like, yeah, I can get lonely or I can get in my head about things because it's just me here, and I have friends here, but it's so empowering to allow yourself to just be on your own. And so I think, the life before working corporate was not a life of freedom. And now I just
Yeah.
live freedom.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great story and explanation and everything kind of at your journey. It makes a lot of sense. And the whole idea of like living on your own and that empowerment that comes with it, I can relate to because likewise, I lived with my parents, I lived with a boyfriend, I lived with my then boyfriend, now husband, and I've never been alone ever
Yeah.
in my whole life. Have I ever lived alone? And I talk to my husband about that a lot. Like, and we have a small child. He's 8 years old now, but I tell him I want to spend time. I would love to be on my own sometime. I would love to just be Vanessa and know what that even means to just be by myself. And so when I started doing, it was always attached to my next corporate gig. What I started doing a couple jobs ago is taking a little mini vacation or mini retreat before I started that job just to be. And it's never been long enough. It's cool, but it's never quite been like long enough. And so what I wrote in my vision for this year is that I wanted to start doing more women retreats with friends, just things that were different from it has to be about family, you
Mhm.
know? So I have one coming up in September, which I'm very much looking forward to. But
Amazing.
yeah, it's a step. It's a step, right?
Yes, it's a step. Yeah, I mean, it's just very different, like, having your own time, like, I wake up and right now, we have a little Yorkie, and my dog is with him in Costa Rica, so it's like, I have no responsibility other than myself, and I understand most like, I would say a majority of people have children, right? But I mean, this morning when I woke up and I like woke up to that alarm and then I looked in the mirror, because it's that time of the month for me and I have hives. Oh my God. And I was exhausted because when my hives are coming and my churning in my body, like something's going on in my body. And I was just like, I am exhausted right now. And I was just like sitting in gratitude that this is my life and it's okay. Like I can be tired because I mean, I have a photo session this evening, but besides my photo session this evening, I mean, I'm always working on my other businesses and whatnot, but there's not something like I have to be at a certain time. And it's just like, for me, that is just the biggest definition of freedom. Oh, and one of the things that like, there's a question that you had written down, would you choose success or happiness? And when I read that question, I was like, my happiness is my success. Like that is what defines success for me, being completely happy, like that is success. And so for some, success is having so much money and like, but for me, like, of course, I always want, don't get me wrong, universe, always want an abundance flowing for me. But success, my definition of success is freedom and happiness. And I'm living it. Like I am living my definition of success. And I think it's important for everyone to define that for themselves and then to ask themselves that hard question, like, are you in alignment and are you living that? Because most people, I don't know if they would say yes. Because I mean, also you can have all the money in the world. Like Mike is a personal freedom coach and he works with these high-end executives who have a lot of income and they're working with him because they're not happy, right? And they're looking for that happiness. And then when they come out from working with him, they're different people. And it's just, it almost brings it more into perspective that like someone can just be overly abundant with money and still be miserable, like still not have the life that they want to live and not have that happiness. And so I think it's just really like I think everyone should do the exercise of what is success to you if you haven't asked
Mhm.
yourself that question.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there also needs to be some introspection before that, because I think, at least for me, I'll take myself. To me, I always thought success was the job title and the income. And so for various reasons, I pushed myself so hard in my corporate career to get to that like senior executive level and made great money and all of this. And it very much was like, when it will ever be enough? It will never be
Mhm.
enough.
It will
No
never
matter
be
what
enough.
title, no matter what money. It's never enough. I mean, look, we have some of the richest men in the world vying to be even richer. They're not happy people, you know? So I think that you need to get to that point and realize, like your husband's clients are doing, wow, something's still missing before you start to really define what success is, because I don't think you really know until you realize that there's not a number.
Right.
But let's talk about money, because that is one of my next questions. How has your income changed since you were working corporate versus now?
Well, so my first corporate job, I mean, I know times have changed, right? So my first corporate job was 2009. I was making $38,000 living in New York City on $38,000. And then Time Inc., the second job with overtime, it was at $48,000. So that's what I'm comparing it to. And I am very fortunate in the fact, so I do have multiple modalities that I earn income from. But I remember there was a year, this was a few years back, so it was in 2022. So everyone was really spending money then, right? Like really spending money because we were all like kind of hoarding our money during COVID. And one month I looked at what I made and I had made $65,000 just in the one. Now that was probably my biggest month ever. But I always go back to that because I made more in one month than I made in an entire year slaving for someone else. Now that's not like a norm for me, right? But it's just, it shows you what's possible and it shows you that you can do anything you want to do. But for me, like yes, of course you need to be making money and I am making six figures. I'm making more than I was making in corporate, but some years are better than other years, but the life that I'm leading is just so incredible. It's the money like yes, you obviously need money. You obviously need money. But I think so many people put so much weight on money and I am a person who, and Mike likes my philosophy, like if I want something and it's more of like a high-end investment, I'll sit with it for about like a couple weeks. And then if I still want it, I'll get it. Now, if I want something that's like $500 or less, I'm pretty impulsive too. Like, and some people might be like, $500 is a lot, and some people might not. Everyone's different. But it just really, like, it just depends, but I'm like, money always flows to me, so, like, I'm not gonna worry about it, right? I'm not sitting in, like, a ton of money, but it easily flows to me whenever I need it. I've never been without money, I've never been without a roof over my head, I've always been able to travel. So I think a lot of people put a lot of weight on money, and I think there needs to be some weight on money, right? Because that's what allows us to live our lives. And I do think having money makes life easier. But I also think when you know that you're never going to be without it, which is another core belief of mine, like everything always works out for me. I know I'm not going to be without it. I'm not going to say I don't worry about it because you talk to Mike and he'll be like, that's not true. But I do know that we're always going to be fine. And we're always, the fact that right now we're able to live a lifestyle where I'm paying for our place here. He's paying for the place there. Like we're doing it on our own. And then we're each buying ourselves what we need to buy. Now we don't have kids too, but it just always works out. Like you're going to make it work, especially if you're an action taker. And that's my
Yeah.
thing. Like if I need money, I'm like, okay, I'm going to put an offer out there. Who's going to take it? And people will be attracted to it because I'm excited about it and I'm going to change your life. And I think having
Yeah.
that confidence and just knowing that like you have the skills to make money, you're going to make money.
I love it. Do you have an ultimate vision for what you want your life to look like?
I would like to own, for a long time, I said I wanted to own a home in Costa Rica. That is not necessarily true. I don't know where the location of the home is, but it's going to be a nice home, not like overly big, but a nice home in an international destination that's on the beach. That is one thing I really like. I want to just keep our nice, cozy apartment that we have here in Breckenridge. But in terms of what I'm going to be doing, like I do see myself on stages talking to women, empowering women to get out of their own way, to give them the tools to tap into their bodies. So when they're feeling that overwhelm or their stress, we can reset it within minutes. And just to be that force that brings this energy of light, that when people have conversations with me, I want them to be like, oh my God, I can do this. And then they go out and they take the action to do it. Like, I just want to inspire women to be able to know that they have the power. And that, I mean, I have worked with a lot of clients who were giving their power away to their partners. And so sometimes they were in relationships they didn't want to be in, but financially they were being supported by their partner. I was like, well, let's shift this. Like times are changing, right? And so I want women to be in the financial position where they, like, if they want to work, they work. They work and they do what lights them up, and a lot of people don't know necessarily what their purpose is, and that's okay. You don't need to know exactly what your purpose is. Just start with what makes you excited, what you're passionate about, because if you can show up every day and doing that, then life's going to be amazing. Like I don't ever feel like, oh, I have to go to work today. I get excited like, oh, what's on the docket today? What am I going to do today? That's a pretty good life.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, I so agree with you. This is amazing. I love everything you're sharing. And I want to say to what you just said, the idea of waking up and being excited about what you have to do, because I have so often in my life not been in that place. Like you described it earlier, like, oh, I have to get up, I have to go to work, I have to do whatever. And even up until very recently, I was in a little bit of a funk, hence hiring the life coach. Because I'm like, I don't have to get up. I don't have anything that, like, I don't have a meeting till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever. And so in my vision, again, for this year, I wrote down, as soon as the sun hits my eyes and I wake up, I want to be excited about getting up in the morning. I want to be excited about my day. And I will tell you, even though I wrote that statement like months ago, only until very recently has it actually come true. And now I'm like, oh, yay, I get to get up. Oh, yay, I have this wonderful things that I'm going to be working on today. Like, I'm excited again.
Yeah.
And if you had told me that I would ever feel that way, like, I know that I have in the past, so I feel like I probably could again, but I'm like, how do I get there? And now I'm here. So
Celebrate
I totally
that.
agree.
Yes. It's huge.
Yes. It's important. It's so important. It's so different. Okay. So what advice do you have for people who are trying to figure out what to do with their lives, and maybe they hear your story and they're inspired by it? What would you tell them?
Basically, I would just say if you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Stop trying to figure it out. What is your zone of genius? What is something that you're talking about so easily and someone comes to you and is like, wow, how do you know that? That is your zone of genius. And if that zone of genius really excites you, then that is what you should be going after. And so just take the action, and it can be small actions equal radical transformation. It's what I teach each of my clients. So, like, it doesn't have to be this huge thing that you're doing. You can do one small thing a day that's bringing you closer to your end goal. But as long as you're taking that aligned action, because basically you're rewiring your subconscious to let you, because right now your subconscious is like, oh, starting a business isn't safe. We're in safety right now with this money. So it's rewiring your subconscious and like literally tapping into your body to rewire your nervous system and your vagus nerve so you actually can feel a safety, because once you feel safe in what you're doing, that is when really the magic happens. And then once one person, you just need one person to pay for your product or service. When that happens, then your chemistry and everything within your body is going to start changing. You're going to start believing in yourself because that one person has paid. And so don't try to I hate the word figure it out. It's just, what really are you very knowledgeable about and you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? And then start taking the action to do it. You don't have to quit your job right now. You can be working on your other project as this is building. And then once you feel that confidence, just go for it. Or if you're just like, I'm done, then go all in and be all in. Because if you stay consistent with what you're doing and you keep showing up, you will become successful. But if you half-ass it and you're just like, oh, maybe I'll do it here and there. I will say, and that's something I struggle with too, like, because I am so multi-passionate, staying consistent is very important, but you will succeed.
I love it. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, 2 last questions, and then I'm going to ask you just about how people can find you. What's the most liberating decision that you've made since leaving your corporate job behind that you would never have been able to make otherwise?
Like I said before, I think it's not living in a box, not living under what everyone else tells me to do, what society tells me I have to do, what other coaches tell me I have to niche down on one thing. I think being all of me, being me fully is my superpower. And when I try to just be one thing, it doesn't work. And so just be all of you. And when you show up authentically as all of you, that's when the light shines.
I love this. I'm totally using that part. Fuck yes. Everything you just said is so beautiful, Alisa. And
Thank you.
It speaks to me. I'm sure it's going to speak to other people. So yes. Okay. What is saving your life right now?
Well, physically, herbs are literally saving my life, but I also think my mindset is really, really huge. I mean, for everyone, how you think about things is literally going to determine the outcome of your life. So if you wake up and you say, I'm going to have a shitty day today, I guarantee you 100 million% you're going to have an awful day. If you wake up and you're like, today's going to be amazing, your day is going to be much more amazing than it would if you had a shitty day. So if you can stay in that positive mindset, but also like sometimes it's hard, right? We have 60,000 to 90,000 thoughts a day, they say. And so 90% of those thoughts are stored in our subconscious, and 90% of those thoughts are negative thoughts. So what I challenge you to do is when a thought comes in, if it's a thought that isn't serving you, if it's something providing you with anxiety, I say, okay, I've acknowledged it. It's not serving me. And I'm a very visual person. I imagine myself swiping it out off into the ether. And so allowing yourself to just focus on what really serves you is going to change your life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's wonderful. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had or think I should have or that you want to share?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot. The moral of the story here is if you have a dream and you're not living your dreams don't scare you. They're not big enough. It's one of my favorite quotes. Like, just go after it. Just start taking it. It's all about action. It's all about aligned action. And once you start taking the action, you might feel like, oh, maybe I don't love doing this. I can't tell you how many different businesses. I'm a woman who has started a lot of different business. I started a business called Mountain Kids Outfitters. I was renting out children's ski clothes. Hated it. Hated it. Ended up selling it, making a couple $1,000s on it, not much, but didn't lose. I didn't lose, right? And I tapped into something that I was like, oh, I don't want to be doing this. I ran a small boutique in the front of my photography studio, did it for 9 months, was like, no, I don't like this. And someone said to me, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry your store failed. I was like, failed? What do you mean? I closed it down. That was the biggest victory. I'm like living my best life. Like I just did not, I wasn't in alignment to it. Even having an employee running the store, I just didn't enjoy it. And so if what you're doing doesn't light you up, like give it a little bit of time. Don't just like close it like a day in. But if it's not lighting you up, in my opinion, after a couple months, it's not all of a sudden going to just start lighting you up. Now there's a difference. If it's scary and you're just scared, stick with it. Right? Like, it's like, for me, speaking on stage, the thought of it scares the shit out of me, but I see the vision for myself. I'm like, oh, I know it's coming. I know it's coming.
You're going to be great at it.
No, thank
Just
you.
based on this.
But it's just like, and that's scary, but it's not making me not go after it because I know that's part of my journey. But if something doesn't light you up, like being in that store, like I would have this anxiety feeling. It's also being in tune with your body. And so 9 months in, I was like, I'm done closing the store. Like I put so much effort and money and time into that. But I was like, this is literally bringing me down. When I closed that store, my photography business amped up even more because I was showing up so much more in the business that I was really aligned to at that moment in time. And so allowing yourself to just be free with that and play, have fun with it all.
Yes. Yes. I think the fun piece is something that, at least for me personally, I know is so important. And so joy is now part of what I need in my life. And I'm okay with that. Like I accept it. But when I was in high school, all the way through, like at least halfway through my corporate career, probably longer, everyone would always say, gosh, Vanessa, you're so serious. Like my work people, right? And my friends knew otherwise, but like my work people, like, you're really serious. And I'm like, well, yes, that's work. It's serious. You know, I have to take it seriously.
Yep.
Like, God, I don't want to do that.
No.
You know, I just want to have fun with my freaking life. Come on.
No, I love approaching life as play. And you know, my sister just went to yesterday. She's like, I don't know, should I go to this where you're waving your arms? What is it called? What's the dance called?
Oh, I don't know.
It's like free dance. Oh, why can't I remember?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I have a friend that does it, but I can't think of the name either.
I'm spacing right now. She said to me, she's like, Alisa, you could have been the teacher. Like you could have been this teacher because I'm very like free and I'll do a lot of like somatic dances. So we're like, we'll stamp, like we'll play like tribal music and so very, very similar. And she's like, but you could have been that teacher. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do something like that. Right. And that's play. And are people and my other thing, okay, one other good message, judgment. Judgment is always going to come from everybody, from every angle. People are judging when they're not happy with their lives. So do not take it personally. When Mike and I came out as polyamorous, that was the time where I got through into judgment like I never knew was possible. And it has made me stronger. It has made me more confident. I know who I am. People may come up with stories about you. It does not matter. The people who are meant to be in your life, who are aligned to be in your life, who actually love you will always stick with you. And those that aren't will fall off, and that's okay. But do not let the judgment and opinion of others prevent you from doing what you love, because then you'll never start. You will never start. I went to my dad and I said, I came back from traveling. He said, what are you going to do now? I said, well, I have this camera. I'm going to be a professional photographer. He said, you'll never make money from that. And I said, watch me. And then I went on my first year, full-time photography. I made 6 figures my first year. And he was like, what? People are paying you what for photographs? Right? And so if I had listened to him, I would have never pursued the career that lit me up. And that was my journey. That was part of my journey to become where I am now, to become this mindset manifestation coach, to tap into your body. Like it was all part of it, right? And now I still do boudoir photography. Like I did 2 boudoir sessions last week and they were incredible, right? These women are lighting up. They're owning their fierceness. Like to be in front of the camera in that raw, natural way. And for me to be able to support that, it's such a gift. Do what lights you up and do not give a shit what anyone else says. Because when you're in alignment with what you want, that is when the magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a side question. You have a lot of focus on women and helping women and lifting women up and all of that, which I think is a beautiful thing. What led you to focus on women as your audience?
I find myself more in alignment with working with women. I have worked with men when I do breath work. I do allow men to come into my breath work sessions. I do find that men are more easily able to tap into their deeper self when they do breath work. And so if they're open to breath work, I now do allow it. But I feel a draw to women. I think also having a mother who was so overprotective of me, and I had a lot of limiting beliefs growing up, and I know that, like, I've always been the woman who, because my mom made a lot of money. She was she made more money than my father. And so for me, that has always been like, I'm going to make my own money. But I also have worked with women. My first client ever was a boudoir client. She came to me. She actually wasn't a boudoir client. I was in a Facebook boudoir group that I was leading. And she said, look, I know I've never worked with you, but I know I need you to be my coach. I don't know if you coach. I know I need you to be my coach. And I was like, well, I've never done it before, but I'll try, right? I'll try. And we did her coaching paired with an empowerment photo session. So I brought it all together. And she was in a very toxic relationship she didn't want to be in. He was making the money. She felt stuck. After working together, she put a plan in action. She got herself together. A year later, she left him. She then also started her own coaching business. And so, like, to be a part of that journey is just so amazing. So it's almost like the universe delivered that to me too, and was like, and now you'll try coaching. And I was like, and the difference is I didn't say no. I took on the challenge and I said, yeah, I will try this. I think when you say no to opportunities that scare you, you're really limiting yourself. So I'll always try something once. And if I don't like it, well, almost always try some. I don't want to bungee jump. There's certain things that I don't want to do. But when it comes to my business, I'll always try something. And if it's not in alignment, like I have this gentleman who's talking to me right now for a photography gig that's a branding gig for his painting company. And I was like, I take portraits of people. I don't really take, and he's like, nah, I saw your work. It's amazing. And so we're working through, like, if we're going to work together, and I pitched him a price and he's like, oh, this is more than I thought it was going to be, because it's a lot of work. But I didn't say no to it. I was like, shit, if you're going to pay me what I want to be paid, I'll show up and I'll do it. And maybe this will open up another avenue, right? And so I'm constantly saying yes to different experiences, to things that challenge me. There are certain things I'll say, and especially with my hives in my body and me knowing my body, being very in tune with that. So there are certain experiences that I might say no to. But when it comes to something that's for your business, to challenge you, try it. What's the worst that happens? You don't enjoy it? Okay, well, you keep on going. Like, it's going to work out. Everything's going to work out.
Fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate you adding all of that wonderful context. If someone wants to find out more about you, how can they find you?
So you can go to my website, alisamesseroff.com. And it's ALISAMESS as in Sam, EROFF, Frank. But maybe you can put like a little something, I don't know.
I will.
A little blurb.
Yeah, I'll put it in there.
AlisaMesseroff.com, it talks about all the different things that I do offer. But when I'm working, especially one-on-one coaching with clients, because I do tap into spirit, because each journey is different. Some clients we're just literally stepping you into your best life. Some clients want to start a business. So I'm a business mentor as well. So we'll kind of like navigate what kind of coaching package is best for you. And so I am flexible in that way, that I do different things with different people. And so it's not just a straight and narrow, like, this is my program, this is my path. So yeah, reach out to me if you're interested. I would love to chat more. Or if you just want a soul blueprint session or a breathwork session too, if you just want to get out of your head and really just like refocus and you've never experienced anything like that, I think everyone deserves to experience what it's like to tap into their body and stop their mind from going 18 miles an hour.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Thank you, Alisa. I really appreciate it. This has been 101 Ways Out. I so appreciate you taking your valuable time and spending it with me. I hope something in this episode made you feel seen, understood, and inspired. If you're looking for support taking the next step in your life, visit 101waysout.com and check out our 30-day program. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on all of your favorite podcast platforms and follow our social media. Spread the word. I look forward to seeing you next week and continuing to explore what lights you up.